You are now listening to Creative Hora. Welcome to Creative Hora. I'm Mary.
And I'm Dalia.
And today we're super excited to have Kodak, who's behind QTWithACamera. And just a little bit about Kodak. They are a two-spirit, queer, Native American, Mexican photographer focused on portrait and lifestyle photography based in Sonoma County, California. They launched QTWithACamera in June 2023 to highlight and celebrate QT BIPOC folk story through their photography. Welcome to the podcast, Kodak. Excited to have you.
Awesome. I love that. I actually wasn't sure what my intro would be today.
Now we're super excited to just talk to you about QTWithACamera, but also dive deeper into your creative pursuits. And yeah, we're super happy to have you here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here. Like, really stoked.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate you making time with us and, having this opportunity to hear from your perspective what it's been like to launch your own creative pursuit. I know that comes with lots of challenges and ups and downs, but, we want to get to the nitty gritty and hear what that experience has been for you. Something that we're doing just to open the space and get us ready for a conversation is, we want to do a little bit of an offering to the space. So, Kodak, coming in here into this new space, what are you bringing with us today to share in terms of an offering? And it can be anything. It can be an emotion. It can be your presence, whatever comes to mind in terms of an offering. And then Mary and I can jump in and share a little bit about where we're bringing into this space together to offer to our conversation.
I love that. Actually, I was taught something very recently. Instead of sharing
Mm-hmm.
like an emotion, equating emotions with the weather, because where do we
Mm.
get our like emotions from? From Mother Nature. So I'm feeling pretty sunny today.
Mm.
Maybe a little bit of like clouds in the sky and stuff, but that's my vibe. Just like very and like elated would definitely be the word that I want to like provide walking into this conversation. So
I love that. That's the first time I've heard of using the weather to as kind of like as an emotional, I guess, analogy. So I think, yeah, like when you said sunny, the first thing that came to mind was like this bright sun,
yeah.
just like illuminating us. Even though we're virtual, I think I was able to visualize like the sunny, and then when you said the word elated, it just kind of connected. So love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, Mary, I'm throwing it back to you.
Yeah, I think not I think I know in this moment and space I do want to bring like an utmost my presence and human connection to one again sharing the space with you Kodak and Dahlia and just bringing a lot of intentionality behind the conversation that we're going to have.
Awesome.
What about
Yeah,
you, Dahlia?
on my end, I love the idea of the weather. I'm gonna borrow that. So I'm gonna say it feels like the skies are clearing up. It's been a little bit of a tough week. And so having this conversation on a Friday to end the week, it definitely is giving those vibes of, it's clearing up, the sun is coming out, and yeah, I'm really excited about being here and sharing the space with both of you. It's very special because the audience may not know this, but Kodak is a longtime friend. We go way back to
Mhm.
high school, college. So it's very beautiful to now be in this virtual space together and catching up with Kodak and hearing a little bit about where they're at. It's very exciting.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Feel that.
Bring
Feel very
mm.
giddy.
Yeah, brings a lot of nostalgic moments. But Kodak, I mean, we're super interested in now the like your present moment in terms of your creative pursuits. We know that you recently launched your photography with Cutie with the camera, but also you launched a creative community. And we acknowledge with even other creators that we've talked to that as a creative, you're always thinking of that. What else can I do? What else can I create? How else can I create more and produce more? But we're curious to hear in your present moment, like how do you take care of yourself as a creative?
Ooh, that is a big question, a heavy question. Um, Gosh, I think I'm still navigating that, to be honest.
Mhm.
I want to say in the very beginning, I actually just hit my like anniversary 2 days ago. Um,
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Um, but I think it was very different, right? I think in my creative pursuits before, it was always managing full-time jobs or multiple part-time jobs and stuff.
Mm,
And so learning how to take care of myself was a little bit different because I use photography as that outlet. And
mm,
so now that photography is the career, it's sort of really having to navigate the whole creative burnout, which
Hmm.
mm,
I think a lot of people talk about, but I never thought I would experience it. Like, no, like I love this. It's going to be
mhm,
totally different.
mhm,
Um, and on top of that, it was sort of there's the creative burnout, there is the entrepreneurial aspect of it. It's not just a job, it's managing a business. It's
mhm,
how do I how, how do I manage my own sales team and my own CRM and the
mm,
organization? Like I'm my own admin, marketer, everything. So that was really
mhm,
hard for me to sort of jump into. And if it wasn't for the mentors that I sort of m- those connections and the individuals that became my mentors along the way, I don't think I really
mm,
would have learned that it's okay for me to not reply to emails. It's
mm,
okay for me to have a day or two or three to just do my own thing and not edit or not talk to folks or not utilize social media as like a comparison platform or like taking marketing
mm,
skill like tips from other folks and things like that. Um, and family was something that was really hard for me to navigate too. Um, Family had
mhm,
to definitely take kind of like a back seat, but it was really hard when I'm raising a little one,
mm,
and taking on that like responsibility too. So nowadays, what I do is go on a walk with my dogs, and I go to the park and I throw around a football, or play some basketball, and it's really fun. And creating content for me. Sometimes I create content to like
mm,
not even share with folks. It's sort of just, and if I do share, it's like with friends, like, "Ooh, look at this concept," or
mhm,
"I have an
mhm.
idea. Let's playing this around." And food. I love food. So
Yes.
I go and get myself some like really, really good food and be chill with it. So
Yes.
Yeah, I love
Mm,
the honesty there around, the creative burnout. It's very real when, to
mhm,
your point, creators are wearing multiple hats in the process. They're the marketing, the sales team, they're you said the admin. You're really like juggling a bunch of different roles as a creator. And I love that you
mhm,
have, your like support system around you, your friendships, your family, and then this incredible like mentors around you as well that are supporting your process of creativity. And can you share a little bit more about that piece? How did you find this chosen community to
mhm,
invest in and have them invest in you as well?
yeah, I think something that I think is really integral to my story is recognizing what it means to be in community because
Mm.
in college, I feel like, and it's kind of cool to have this conversation with y'all because y'all went through
mhm,
that experience with me, right? Like when I came back home to Sonoma County, I didn't have community. I didn't have creatives that I had access to. I didn't even have folks that had the same like values as I did. I had to like really sort that out for myself and just come back home and figure out what that meant. So
mm,
to start a business on my own was even harder because although I started to make new friendships and new connections, it was still like this is something different in terms of like a career endeavor, but also like I still had never made friends that were creative, right?
Mm.
So this time last year, actually right after I lost my job, on this day, I had reached out to
mm,
a Instagram group chat that I was part of back in January of 2023, and it was sort of really cool to reach back out to a huge plethora of folks that were either videographers, photographers, graphic designers, and things like that. And I was really vulnerable, and I think that I look back at that moment and I'm like, man, if it wasn't for that moment of vulnerability, I would not
mm,
be where I'm at today.
Mm.
And I literally just said, I lost my job. I don't really know what to do. I would love anybody who would have an opportunity to chat with me about what it means to do full-time photography in whatever arena that you are doing photography, because there's so
Mm,
many different types. And um, a woman named Ashley reached out and she said, "Hey, I don't shoot people," which I hate saying that actually. I don't photograph people. I photograph houses, and so real estate photography. And I was like, I don't care if I get to play around with a
right.
camera. That's all I cared about at that point. And I had also just understood startup businesses because of my prior job, what that looked like
Mm,
too. So it's sort of just understanding that methodology can be applied to anything. And as long as I know how to handle a startup business, I understand scalability and all that other stuff. So I
mhm,
felt like I had a good understanding of foundational stuff. So when she said real estate, I was like, it doesn't matter. She's learning how to do something with a camera and marketing that.
mhm,
And that's where I
mhm.
really struggled was I have told Dolly in the past, I don't know if I could ever do sales. And I had to very quickly take sales 101, sort of. She decided to have coffee with me. And we just hit it off. Like we really connected on a lot of different levels. She's also a queer person, a lesbian, Latina. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, some check boxes where I could probably have the same conversation with somebody else, but it
Mhm,
just it felt more relatable to me. And so
mhm,
she decided to kind of take me under her wing in a mentorship and was like, well, this is what I'm doing for my business. And she was part of a business
mm,
networking group filled with 60 other individuals who are entrepreneurs or salespeople trying to grow their business and the way that they know how through a philosophy called like giver's gain, which is
mm,
I'm going to help you as much as I can. And all that good karma is just going to come back to me at some point, right? I help you today. You might help me a year from now. And that's just like
mm,
in my personality too. Like I just like to help people. So to have her model that for me in a very like
mm,
interpersonal way was like, hey, this is cool. But because of that, I had started talking to her and other folks. There was other folks that I had already made relationships with prior, like another photographer, and her name is Lau. And she does a lot of social justice work and is just like super down for people and like down for growth and all this other stuff. And so I reached out to her and I was like, dude, you and I met last year and this is 2023, right? So I met her in like 2022. Actually, prior to that, but in 2022,
mhm,
she was pursuing photography as a business. So I was like, "Oh,
mm,
dude, like you know exactly what I'm going through, where I'm at and
mhm,
stuff." And so just kind of falling back into those relationships in a very different way I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to be
mm,
vulnerable. I'm willing to
mhm,
share where I think I'm messing up and stuff like that. And those folks have their own network and just connecting with their network, um, having those personalities that were very similar to myself, which is I'm going to help you out because it's it's compartir, no competir, right? It's to share, not to compete with each other.
mm,
And just like surrounding myself with more and more folks that are of the same mindset to where I'm at today, to folks that are like willing to sit with me and talk to me about my portfolio and not charge me as a coach or
mm,
things like that, right? Because we all have to start somewhere.
mhm.
And it snowballed from there, really. Like the snowball, the little tiny ball is a huge avalanche now of the community. So it's been great.
Wow. No, that's beautiful. I think what I heard was like just the power of being vulnerable and opened up so much for you, and it seems like you just aligned the people that you needed at that time, but also the mentorship you needed at that time, and you found really great people who were just willing to give and share their knowledge. So yeah, that's amazing, Kodak, and appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. Um, it was a bit of a rant, but yes, thank you.
No, 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 no. This is great. Yes, I think with that, now that it's been a year, like you said, like one snowball now is turning into an avalanche. I'm sure you're where you started a year ago. It's a very different place now. So how do you manage just the different where you were then to where you are now in terms of I mean, I'm assuming you get a lot more requests. There's always more to do now. You're a year
Yeah.
in into your craft. So how do you manage that kind of like that marathon pace versus that sprint pace that you might be juggling? I mean, I could be assuming too.
No, you're pretty spot on. I think nowadays, I think I'm no I actually just had this conversation with my partner Alex, and
Mm,
it was Winter was really, really rough, right? We're talking about that first year, the figuring it out, wearing all
Mm,
the hats, the how do I
mhm,
manage myself and being a parent and a married partner and a sibling and just like all these different things that are happening to me. And so winter was actually really, really dark,
mm,
really, really dark. Like for me, because as much as I've been doing photography, doing it as a business accelerated a lot of learning for me, right? And so during the winter, I actually did plant a lot of seeds.
mm,
And a lot of those seeds actually started to flourish in the spring, this past spring, which led to, hey, you were my past client and you asked me again to come back for an event, right? Or
mm,
we met sometime last year and now you're somewhere in your business and now we want to collaborate and work together and stuff. So I would say if anything, it's now more steady. I'm not
mm,
so much like, how do I market myself? This isn't working. Let me try this out instead. Um, Networking was very and is very powerful. If I didn't network, I don't think I would be feeling more like, okay, like I have an idea of what my income is.
mhm,
I
mhm,
do still work with Ashley, and I am now a real estate photographer as well. And learning that craft and applying it to my current craft. I had never done studio photography before, and now, although I said this in the past, I hated it and I never wanted to learn it. It was mostly out of fear. And now it's like, oh wow, understanding light and how that all works is just like
mhm,
it's like uncovering a lot of like cool ideas in my head. And so
mm,
I think it's definitely more of, okay, now what can I do better and where can I start to highlight aspects of my business that I want to do more of, right?
mm,
Like
mhm,
I will for me, I will always do event photography because I think it's a little bit easier. It's not so much creative input and stuff like that. But I want to do more branding photography. I want to like talk to you about your business and create a story and that visualization and the collaboration and the creation of all of it. So I'm starting to like narrow down more of what I want to
mm,
do instead of just scrambling for anything and trying to make those connections, um,
mm,
which is where I would rather be, but I learned a lot that first year for sure.
mhm,
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Kodak. And, it does sound like it was a journey with, many, many ups and downs. But one thing that, in hearing your response, I really appreciate is just how like knowledge hungry you were to improve,
mhm,
get better, and, expand your craft, even doing things that sound like were a little bit scary, like that studio photography piece.
mhm.
And, I was on your Instagram this past week. We're friends on there, of course. And some of your studio shots that you posted were some of my favorite. And I love that. I was like, this is beautiful. This is great.
Mhm,
So I would have never known that that was something that was, a little bit scary to you because, those shots are so beautiful. But, in terms of going back to, you shared a little bit about winter being a bit of a tough time in those periods where you're pursuing something full time, you're fully committed to this creative pursuit. What are some of those things that ground you or make you feel like, all of this is worth it in terms of this pursuit that you may not have
mhm,
full visibility into the outcome? Can you share a little bit of what were some of those, grounding either folks that were around you or that motivation to continue to push through and see the light at the end of the tunnel there, plant those seeds that will eventually bloom?
Three things. One thing that really stood out to me. The biggest one that I think was really grounding Dalia mostly was the confidence I had to have within myself.
Hmm.
mm,
I walk around the world as a very confident person. I think a lot of friends and family would say I'm a very confident person, but when I'm wondering how I'm going to feed my family and how I'm going to make rent and like looking at apartments of what maybe I can afford, but can I even afford that sort of thing? I went deep within myself and reminded myself that, like, at the end of anything, the one thing that I absolutely know about myself is I'm a survivor. Um, Lived experiences has taught me so much more about myself than anybody could ever say to me or I could read in a book. And it's that I know how to get through something that's really tough. And
mm,
so I navigated, or not really navigated, but I regressed back into a hustler mindset, which was Like I'm not gonna go down easy. I'm gonna go down swinging. I'm gonna figure it out. So confidence and like reconnecting with confidence was huge for me.
Mm. Mhm.
Um, the second thing was a lot of validation and speaking to other folks um, who are entrepreneurs and things like that. Ashley had introduced me to that business networking group. I actually ended up applying and became a member, and now I'm the
Mm.
photographer within that group. And
That's
so,
awesome.
not only would she share with me, like, yeah, it's such a great resource, I swear. But not only would she share with me like her vulnerable moments in her business because she's in like year 4 now. She would listen to me and just provide a space for me to just sort of like cry and vent and be scared and share a lot of my fears. And she just replied with a lot of, dude, I've been there. That's exactly how it is. Like, but what makes you last long in this game, what makes it so much worth it is all the things that you're trying to figure out, which is for me, I was figuring out just how much I don't want to go back and work for somebody else and make somebody else some money. And the third thing was really just remembering that, um, yeah, talking to Ashley and just having her validate a lot of the fears and things like that was really just eye opening, I guess.
Mm.
I think when I think of like mental health and us as humans, right, we don't want to feel alone.
Mhm.
And you can feel really lonely as a creative, as an entrepreneur, and in those
Mm.
spaces. So having somebody else who had already gone through it, and just like tell me like, dude, yes, it's okay. I've been there. I've to like one story she shared with me was like last week I wanted to throw in the towel. And I'm like, dude, last week, like you're building a
Mm.
whole team now. Like you are
Mhm.
so much further in your business than I am and you want to throw in the towel. And she's like, yeah, it just comes and goes. And the biggest difference between us and other people that don't have their own business is the willpower, the reminders that you have set in place of I don't want to go back. And the third thing that I'll say that really grounded me was just knowing that the type of person that I was before versus the person that I am now is vastly different. And in my previous job, it
Mm.
was let me take care of myself and my family and all the other things that haven't changed today. But let me also take care of 20 other employees and the business and sacrifice my weekends and like just like different type of stress
Mm.
that was put onto me, right? It's not just my livelihood, it's a lot of other folks' livelihood. And if that all goes down the drain, like I'm such a compassionate person, like I'm gonna care about that stuff. And now I'm stressed, don't get me wrong. It's how am I gonna get paid? How am I gonna get like make
Mhm.
money? How am I gonna make time for myself and stuff? But it's so freaking rewarding to do what I'm doing. It's cool when somebody
Mm.
reaches out to me for my art and wants to collaborate with me. It's awesome when I work with folks that hate having photos taken of themselves or don't have photos taken of themselves because they don't feel good about themselves or they can't connect with another photographer who can't get their pronouns right, right? Like
Mm.
that's
Mm.
rewarding. That fuels my spirit in such a way that it's I don't care if I gotta worry about money, if this is gonna be that return of investment or whatever, like, I'll take it all day long. And it
Mm.
was just fighting the whole, like, "I'm gonna make it through winter, I'm gonna make it through winter, it's gonna be okay when it's bright and sunny, I've got more plans in place, and I'm a stressor for sure, but I'm also a planner." And, again, just going back to point 1, just making sure that, like, I've got that confidence, and keeping the confidence was very that kept me afloat, y'all, like, if it
Mhm.
wasn't for that, I
Yes.
probably would've put thrown in the towel a long time ago.
No, yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, you bring up a lot of good points, and from the last point you made, I think it's fascinating how, like, before you pursued your full-time photography, full-time pouring into your craft, you're pouring in so many other people's craft, for lack of better words, aside from your own, but it sounds like this past year has really allowed you to pour into you and your creative pursuits, but also has brought a lot of like a new freshness of what is meaningful work for you. And that, like, I think that's important. I think as a creative, not only do you have to believe in your what you're producing, but hopefully has like a return on impact. Maybe not a return on investment for some, but maybe that return on impact for the people that you're serving.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
and I know you focus. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to share, Kodak, that in hearing you talk about the different pillars of what have grounded you in those difficult moments in the winter when you might not have had like the full visibility into the outcome. I really, really appreciate you just highlighting how this is like
Mm-hmm.
a work in progress. That this is something that
Mm-hmm.
you continuously have to prioritize, reinvest, and you know, be okay with not having the perfect outcome or not knowing what that other side looks like. It's like a commitment to that inner work in yourself in terms of that confidence piece, that vulnerability piece, but
Mm-hmm.
also that
Hmm.
human connection that it takes to build the networks that are strong enough to support you through those tough times. And so I think that's just fully a
Mm-hmm.
reflection of who you are. And so I really appreciate you being really honest about that journey because yes, as creators, there
Mm-hmm.
is those ups and downs. There's even like this week, I said I had a tough week. I wanted to throw in the towel too. I'm like, why am I doing this? Why am I working with this in this company? Whatever. It happens. So thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you so much for being vulnerable about that. I really, really, really
Mm-hmm.
appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I mean, thank y'all for providing the space because it's not easy. When I meet other creatives, it is I I want to acknowledge them. Like I want them to feel seen when they're like, I'm a photographer, I'm this, I'm that. Because a lot of my journey
Mm-hmm.
too, where I started, it was I'm gonna be a full-time photographer. And it was
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of weird looks or
Mm,
faces from family and some friends
Mm-hmm.
that are no longer friends, you know. And it was a lot of just like, that's what you're gonna do with your time. I've seen you in this other aspect of your life, that's professional aspect that I've navigated in the past, and like that's what you're gonna do instead. And nowadays, when I meet a creative, like I'm a graphic designer, or I'm this, or I'm that, or I want to quit my job and go and pursue this, I tell them like, I see you. You need a mentor, you need a cheerleader, you need somebody to look at something, give you that like other eye, give you that hard talk or something. Like I know exactly what you're going to go through or what you've been
Mm-hmm.
through or anything like that. And that's really hard because there's I don't want to say a stigma, but there are some, upturned
Mm-hmm.
noses when you say your profession and from folks that don't get it and they don't see the work that goes
mm,
into it.
mhm.
Creatives don't
Yeah.
have it easy.
Yeah, definitely. I can imagine what those, I wouldn't say haters, but like they're not
Those folks,
haters. They're maybe like late adopters of creativity.
I
Um,
like
I
that.
can see how that could be like okay, just yeah. I mean, a distractor for the creative process.
Hmm.
But definitely like kudos to you for just keep just minding your business, keep on moving along with what you want, and that is photography. So yeah, I don't think you should pay them any attention because look
No,
where
I
you're at
haven't.
now.
Luckily, right? Yeah.
But I think you mentioned how one of the things that brings you a lot of fulfillment is when you're able to work with a client who doesn't have a lot of photos of them because they've never either connected with the photographer or for whatever other reason that they don't feel comfortable being photographed. But when they reach out to you, or when you're able to work with clients who, again, historically don't want their photos taken or haven't had the chance to get their photos taken, um, just curious to hear a little bit more about that process and why is it important for like a photographer to connect with the client, um, in terms of like especially with like the type of photography that you're doing is very centered around queer folks, LGBTQ plus folks, BIPOC folks. Why is that important? Like to be behind the lens as part of that the community that you wanna capture.
Yeah. For myself, I think number one, like I'm in that community. So I think I know, I don't want to say better, but I can relate a lot to that process of growing up in society or within a culture that doesn't celebrate trans folks or BIPOC folks and things like that in the way that we want that celebration, right? We want respect. I think we as individuals, just in general, really want to just be respected. Um,
Mm.
and so it is really like demoralizing and like when you talk to somebody who just can't get your pronouns right, right? Like
Mm.
you're trying to get pretty and gussied up in front of the camera and like you're already not really feeling good about yourself and your identity and you don't really know the person behind the lens and then
Mm.
the person doesn't like want to even get your pronouns right or like they want to pose you in a way that's very like effeminate but like you are very masculine within yourself. You want that reflected within your photos, right? Like um I think back to a lot of my own experiences for back to school photos and things like that and the way they make you tilt your
Mm.
head or the way they like make you like stick your chest out or just like frame you a certain way, right? Or you woke up in a bad mood with a bad hair day and like that's going to be in the yearbook and like people buy the yearbook and like there's this like
Cringe
memorialization that
factor.
happens. Yeah. um but like imagine that for
Mm-hmm.
like my adult clients, right? Imagine that happening all the time. Like you're not even in
Mm.
school anymore. Like life is supposed to be on your terms, right? A lot of us say like just get through high school. Just get through high school. And when you're an adult, you get to choose. Like a lot of the things are up to you, right? But you can't even control that. Like that really sucks. Like why would
Mm.
anybody want to go through that process? And like on the other side of it too, like when you are trans and you're already uncomfortable within the body that you are born into, you don't want to be remembered that way. You don't want to be
Mm.
remembered um by your dead name or prior to whatever hormone therapy if you choose to do that and stuff like that or surgeries even and stuff like I look back at pictures of myself and there is that weird cringe factor. And like if I show anybody else, I get stupid compliments that I just don't appreciate. It's like I
Mm.
appreciate you seeing my attractiveness or oh my God, you look so beautiful, or you look so this, but like I want you to take a picture of me now. Like I look beautiful and I look this and that and stuff.
Mm.
Having my own lived experiences in that sphere makes me want to have somebody in front of my lens and be comfortable. I want to get to know the person in front of my lens. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of photographers that they have the sales thing in mind already. They know
Mm-hmm.
how to market themselves. Like they do this just as a job.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no like extra care that happens. I'm all about the before care and the after care. Before the care, I want to know your pronouns. I want to know a little bit more about who you are. Because if we don't vibe, like, I don't want to take your picture. I can pass you along to somebody else. I've got other folks in my network that I can pass
Mm.
you to, and they're great photographers. Um, but like, don't you want to know who and how I am too? Like, I want you to be comfortable. When
Mm.
you are uncomfortable, that shows in front of the lens, and I've seen it time and time again. We see it time and time again. You can look at photos like taken back in like the 90s and stuff like that. And like when people are not comfortable in front of the lens, like um nobody likes that cringe. Like nobody wants to cringe. And then the aftercare is also really important. I care about whether or not you like the photos. Was there something that was off during the session? Did you even feel comfortable telling me about that during the time if you were off or feeling off? Um,
Mm.
there are some folks that when we get to the shoot, they're not having a good day. Like they powered through it and they made it to the location, but they're not having a good day. And I asked them, like, do you want to reschedule? That's okay if you want to reschedule.
Mm.
This is not supposed to be an experience where you look back on it, you're like, I remembered how uncomfortable I felt. Like, that's not the whole point of the photo shoot. Like, you pay to have a good time. Let's have a good time.
Mhm. Mhm.
um, and so I just think it's really important to capture all of that too. And the other aspect of it, and I know this can be a whole thing in and of itself, but like as a BIPOC, as a cutie BIPOC person, queer, trans, black, indigenous person of color, like with being in that community, I don't often see folks like me on social media or
Mm.
and commercial spaces and things like that. And if I do see them in social media, I've curated that content for myself, right? Like
Mhm.
I don't see a lot of queer joy. I don't see a lot of like BIPOC folks in general, unless it's like in a very negative light. So being artsy and creative and sharing joy and capturing those moments that I think deserve to be celebrated, whether it's just because you felt really good, or photographing couples who are doing surprise proposals, or capturing very intimate ceremonies to very large weddings and things like
Mm.
that. Like, we need more of
Mhm.
that. Like, I think in a way, like, that is radical in and of itself, and queer joy is radical, and like, why not be part of like a movement that wants to celebrate that? Um, it's extremely important to me, which is why I named it QT with a camera, not because I think I'm cute or anything like that. No, I get that compliment, but it's because I'm queer and trans. That is
Mhm.
how I navigate like those spaces from that lens. Literally, no pun intended, but literally from, that viewpoint and
Wow.
that perspective and that
Mhm.
experience. And it is a large part of me. I can't really get away with it, and not a lot of other folks can too. So I want to be that safe space and show people that I could be that safe space.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. That's one of the things that I love about your feed is the joy that you share with your posts, highlighting your clients, their
Mhm.
proposals, their intimate moments. They're so beautiful to just see on my feed. And so I definitely appreciate, as an audience, being able to see more of that in my feed. And to something that you mentioned as well is, this is something that, you know, art is also, radical in that process in terms of
Yep.
being able to highlight, queer love. That's radical. And being able to do so with your own craft is even more radical. So I, in thinking about this and thinking about your art and this specific niche that you are specializing in and highlighting with your platform, has there ever been an instance where in the past you think about, I guess, like, how do you stay centered around not trying to expand too much away from what you're trying to specialize in terms of, like, you could be doing more, you could be doing more clients in, I don't know, like the Latinx space, quinceañeras. Like, how do you stay centered around this
Mhm.
specific like vision, and make this your special, something that you're specialized in without straying too far away from it?
Yeah, I think that's a little hard because I think there's something that I have to do within my own mind and stuff like that when I navigate like the business, like
Mm.
working a quince. I see that as a job. I still want to
Mm-hmm.
highlight, I still want to celebrate, but the real talk, like quinces, I also am like more like I want to do a quince. I want to make her feel celebrated. Like if
Hmm.
she's down with it or he's down with it, like let's do it. If they are down with it, let's celebrate that milestone, right? Because I share a lot of that culture versus a sweet 16, right? Like I
Mm.
think for me, I view the Sweet 16 as a job. I think it's still special. I think everybody deserves affirming photographs and capturing that moment. And being in Northern California where fires are frequent, like I think photos and capturing memories are like so much more important than a lot of other folks like even think or want to realize and stuff like that. But like having those
Mhm.
gone in moments, and that's literally stories that I have heard from other folks, like I want them to have that. But the way that I'm going to conduct myself in those spaces is going to be this is a job. I'm gonna do my job.
Mm.
I'm great at customer service. I'm great at managing what I gotta do. I'm gonna get paid. But then there's the other aspect of it for me, which is um, the thing that I want to do. And like those are the ones that bring a lot of joy, right? But those are the ones that I market. Those are the stories that I want to
Mm-hmm.
tell. And we as humans love stories. And so if I'm telling and pushing more of those stories, and then some corporate company wants to come and pay me and like tell a different story because of my craft, then like by all means, yes, that's great. But
Mhm.
I think it's because I get a lot of freedom in picking and choosing what I want to do. Um,
Mhm.
because I will say there have been times where I'm like, no, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna participate in that. But how powerful is it that I get to say no? When
Mm-hmm.
if I was like working for a company and they're like, you're gonna do this, and it's like, okay, how do I manage my self care for the week doing something I don't want to do? Like I don't have to worry
Mm.
about that in this case. I don't have to worry about do I need to take care of myself this week because I'm doing something or a project that I don't believe in? Or do I have the opportunity and the power to say no and focus my efforts on something that I really, really want to do, something that's going to bring me joy, and I'm going to want to talk about it and highlight it and plaster it
Mm.
everywhere that I want and can.
Right,
Um,
right.
so I think in terms of like having to figure out how to make sure that I'm staying on the track that I want, it hasn't been hard in that way. Um, which is like a huge plus in being my own boss. And I love it. Like again, I won't go back. I won't figure something out before I go back.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like the beauty, like the other side of entrepreneurship and being a creative is you do set that tempo of what are things that, or people, things that you want to bring into your own, again, your own artistry or your own entrepreneurship or your own business. But you can also like say no and be okay with that because it is a decision that you're making that best aligns with again your craft, your values as a creative. So that is it is very powerful to have that agency and ownership of what you want to bring into your space in your again your artistry and your business. So that's powerful, Kodak. But curious to hear, as we're looking more like ahead and things that you want to manifest for Cutie with the camera, what what do you want to like attract for your business for again the intentionality you bring with just your creativity and your creative pursuits? What are like maybe some ideal collaboration look like for you? I mean, and think big, imagine big. Like what does that look like?
Man, I think in a way it's kind of already happening. Um,
Awesome.
I I have cultivated a creative community. That's something that I didn't think I was gonna be part of. I always thought I'd participate in it. I didn't think I was gonna kind of like pave that pathway for it to be in
Mm.
existence in Sonoma
Mm,
County. So the project, I always call it a project because it allows it to transform and be whatever it ends up being. And if it stops being that, it can be something else. Um,
mm,
but it's called Community Creatives. And it is a community that we are cultivating of creatives. It used to just be photographers and models, and now it's kind of branched into videographers. And the big dream is musicians and people that
Mm.
are like light technicians
mm,
and sound technicians and producers and things like that, and being able to host like festivals and like being this like big collective where we can all come together and offer the mentality that we are striving towards, which is the whole like compartir no competir. We want to share, we want to educate, we want to collaborate, we want to create, and we want to do it lovingly and with a lot of compassion, and knowing like that we all started from somewhere. We all have a
mm,
wealth of knowledge. You are not my competition because whatever clients you attract is probably not going to be the clients I attract, and we're after the same clients. And like, why can't we collaborate or pass on referrals and stuff like that? Because again, creative
mhm.
burnout is a thing, and there are so many people and there's a lot of wealth to be distributed and stuff. And so really growing that, but also making
Mm,
such a positive impact, right? Like bringing youth involved too. I am raising my almost 13-year-old baby brother. And so he's definitely offered a lot of perspective for me, which is,
mm,
man, I don't want him to sit at home all summer and not do anything. How do I get his mind going?
mm,
how do I make sure that he understands that there's opportunities? Like if he decides he wants to go to college, by all means, go to college and stuff like that. But if you're like me and you got halfway through college and then you're just like, man, what do I do with myself after that? Know that there's so many different options. The world
mhm.
relies on creatives. Like those commercials that you're watching, those shows that you're watching, like the podcast
Right.
you're listening to, right? That has to come from somebody's mind. Somebody partnered with somebody else to make this become a
Yeah.
thing. And so this community that of creatives that we're cultivating, we're actually reaching out to other creative nonprofit organizations and agencies within Sonoma County, and we are trying to make an impact on like not just our creative community, but like our community as a whole, like our Latina community, our Filipino community, like our queer community, our Black community. Like there's so many intersectionalities. And when you really think about social justice and how do we bring ourselves together as a collective and how do we help the creative community, but the creative community definitely impacts the professional community. right? Like, how do we
Mm-hmm.
all help each other, like, just like raise that vibration and stuff like that? So we were approached recently with an opportunity for Kim's in Creative, which is another like nonprofit organization in Sonoma County that works with creative specifically, and they are trying to figure out like how do we redistribute that wealth, y'all? Like how do we give back to the
Mm.
marginalized communities? How
Wow.
do we work intentionally with those folks, and like how do we make sure that that like positive intention also aligns with positive impact? And like how do we
Mm.
discuss it and break it down and reframe a lot of just like BS, you know what I mean? Like how do we break the mold for a lot of other folks? How do we pave that pathway? And maybe that's not big enough. Maybe it could be a lot bigger, but man, that is so like fulfilling for
It's pretty
me.
big.
Like just making sure that that's gonna stay there, you know what I mean? Like just building those roots,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm focused on right now and for like the next 5 years. And who knows, like maybe it'll be something like way different like in the next 5 years, but that it's like there's like a different fire within me now,
Mm.
knowing that that's on the
Yeah.
horizon. So really excited.
That's incredible. And I'm from Sonoma County, so I can't wait to see the impact that you have, in the larger Sonoma County community. I know we've had some conversations about some of the things that you're working on with this specific collective, but yeah, I know that, yeah, can't wait to see those manifest and be at one of your festivals in the future.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Heck yeah.
Specifically put on by this creative collective that is filled with all these incredible individuals from all different types of identities, intersectionalities. So I loved hearing you talk about it because I was just envisioning like this big festival put on by you all, and being a huge community event. And so I'm really excited
Mm-hmm.
for what that will manifest into Kodak. But as we are looking to close this conversation a bit, I would love the opportunity to invite you to share a couple of words of wisdom with a previous younger self that maybe may not have known where you would be at today. And you can keep it as simple or as as long as you want. But if you could share some words of wisdom with a younger self, about your creative pursuits or just in general, what would those words of wisdom be?
Let's see. I think something I would definitely say is from a quote that I read recently, and it stuck with me ever since I read it. But it would mostly be, although you think the dreams that you have right now are just a vision, trust me, very soon they're going to become a reality.
Love that.
Mm. Mm. No, that's powerful. And I mean, I think, and we heard that from the very beginning of the episode, from where you started and how everything the seeds you were planting and to where you're at now. So I think you're definitely making those dreams a reality, Kodak, and it's amazing to hear that and see that. And I'm very sure your younger version of yourself really appreciates that quote and that mantra moving forward. But as would love to definitely make sure that our audience know where they can find you. So if you can share your social media and even like what's next coming for you, in terms of projects or collabs, please let us know.
So go ahead and say it now. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay.
Socials or next projects coming up.
Gotcha. Yeah, socials are at QT with a camera, QTWithACamera. I'm on Instagram, on Facebook, also on LinkedIn. We'll start to post a lot more stuff there. And quick plug in for the Everywhere is Queer app. I am also on there for any of the queers that tune in. If you want to
Mm.
find queer owned businesses or very yeah, queer owned businesses. There's an app dedicated for all of that. I am on that. And actually a project that I'm working on next. I'll be putting it into my Instagram, but hopefully it just starts off in Sonoma County and gets worldwide, ideally. But I am going to be working on a project called Inner Child Healing. And it's going to be taking portraits of folks projecting a younger version of themselves behind them and a small letter from your current self to your past self, because we all have a lot of healing to do.
Mm.
And I think something artistic like that would be very powerful. So I'm going to be launching that project
Super
Wow.
next month.
exciting, Kodak. I can't wait to hear more about that project. Before this conversation started, Mary and I are doing this thing where we'll pull a little oracle card at the beginning, and then wrap up the conversation by sharing the card that we pulled. And for our conversation today, the card we got was self-acceptance. And so I love that. Just this is the first time I'm seeing it as we're wrapping our conversation. But I loved hearing about your journey of like coming together, building that confidence, and fully in the last year committing to this craft that you've grown with a beautiful community. And there's so many exciting projects in the horizon. So thank you so much for sharing the space with us. And can't wait to see everything manifest for you in your creative pursuits.
Oh my God, y'all. Thank you so much. Like, shocked at the card, but
So
not
cute.
shocked.
Look
Like,
at
come on.
that.
Like, all of our energies
So
I know,
cute.
together.
right?
Of course.
Yes, yes.
Yes. I love y'all. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. Creative Hora is a podcast production hosted by Dalia Zaragoza and Mary Figueroa. This episode is edited by Abdullah Kawish and is produced by akstudio.global.